is beautiful.
Okay. Hey everybody, Dean here from the Feely Real Estate Group today, and today we have a very special guest. We have my friend Imran, the owner of CSMA Martial Arts Academy. So let's get into it. So Imran, how are you doing today? Welcome to our studio here, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Imran. I own Canadian Sport Martial Arts Academy, so also short for CSMA. So we're a martial arts studio. We got 2 locations. We have one in Stittsville and one in Barrhaven. And pretty much what we teach at our studio is a mix of different styles of martial arts, but our specialization is karate and kickboxing. So we started as young as 3 years old, and we have adult programs as well too. And yeah, been doing this. Actually, it's my 10th year of owning it, so it's been quite a journey, quite a fun time. A lot of growth, a lot of learning experiences, and I mean, I'm happy to talk about a lot of that today.
Awesome. So let's see. How did you get into martial arts? Like, what made you go into that?
So just like any child that's, growing up, especially, as a parent, you're always trying to find a sport for your child to do. You never want your child staying at home doing nothing, right? And at that time, there was no video games or anything like that, so you were really doing nothing. But we tried a couple of sports for myself. I never really did well in other sports. If you know me very well, you'll know I'm not the most athletic person. I don't pick up other sports very well. This is the only sport I've always been good at. Pretty much what happened was that, my parents got me involved in soccer. I didn't really do much. I was one of those kids that don't thrive well in team sports. And there's a lot of kids that I work with at my studio that are very similar to me. And what got me into martial arts was actually my neighbor, because my neighbor just kept coming home with trophies, kept coming home with all kinds of cool stuff. And I would go play and see all these trophies, and that's kind of what got me inspired, is that I wanted to win some trophies. I wanted to do, that's what really got me into martial arts. So my parents enrolled me in a martial arts studio in Hamilton, because that's where I was born, but it was a pretty cheap martial arts studio. And they, there was another studio I really wanted to train at, but they didn't do it at the time. That was our family kind of situation. But it was, it's for the same thing. It was really good for me to start from there. And then when we moved to Ottawa, they made me start again from the bottom. But martial arts is something I've been doing since I was 6 years old. So my whole life I've kind of grown up in martial arts in a dojo.
Yeah, no, there's, I mean, I get that. Like, the team sport thing isn't always for everybody, and there's individual sports that people can thrive into, and I think, like, you hit the nail on the head. Starting young is always a good thing, because it builds different things as you're growing up too, and I'm sure you've experienced that with being in martial arts and the things that you learn and stuff like that. Getting into the business side of things, like, what made you want to own a dojo or own your own school type of thing? Like, what made you jump into that?
So I've always wanted to own a studio. My biggest role model was my martial arts instructor, who's still running his martial arts studio and still crushing it. And I always looked up to him because, one, he was extremely jacked and in shape and destroyed all of his competition, was an amazing fighter, amazing at everything. So obviously, I think we all look up to our martial arts coaches and instructors. I know you're in martial arts as well too. So, when you do martial arts, having a strong coach is so important, because that's your role model. That's someone you're going to be looking up to, getting advice and everything like that. And that's why, as a martial arts coach and instructor, you need to be that role model for people. So that's why I prioritize my fitness and my health, so that way I can give that, what my instructor gave to me, I give that to my students, my community. But the question was how I got into business, right? So when I was young, I've always wanted to own a studio, because that's what my instructor did. But my parents wanted me to be in school, become a doctor, the classic thing, right? So become a doctor, do this, do the right,
doctor, lawyer, whatever, right?
Exactly, right? So I did go, and it's funny because my parents did talk to my martial arts instructor and told my instructor to kind of encourage me to go that path as well too, when I was young. So I ended up going that path. And it was probably about fourth year university where an opportunity came to take over the current CSMA studio, because the owner of this studio didn't want to own it anymore. And the opportunity came. And so it was one of those, fork on the road situations where I can either keep going through school, which I was doing terrible in school, by the way. I was actually doing pretty bad in school. And by terrible, I mean, I was mediocre. I was 60s, just passing some classes and everything. It just wasn't for me.
It's if you don't have the passion for it, I get that. Like, if you're not passionate about what you're doing in school, you're probably not going to do that well.
Exactly.
Right? Like, it's especially if you have if you're passionate about martial arts and you're thriving in it, and you probably feel like a complete different person, either going to school or doing martial arts. You probably didn't want to be in school much, right?
No, exactly.
So I get that, man. Like it's school isn't for everybody. I think a lot of people lack the ability to find their passion early on.
Yes.
Like you get into a career and you kind of get stuck. And you're like, okay, well, I went to school for this for 5 years or 6 years or 7 years or 10 years or 12 years, right? Mm-hmm. Then you're doing this job, and then like 3-4 years, then you're like, do I really want to do this the rest of my life? But then you look back, you spent 15 years prepping for that.
Yep.
So it's like, it's tough, man. I think I tell a lot of my friends, like, whenever I tell somebody like, why I do real estate, is because I'm passionate about it.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of those things where you have to find your passion and just kind of push forward, and it's not always the easiest path.
No,
I'm sure you've experienced that, but yeah, sorry.
But it gets you excited, right?
Yeah.
So you're excited about real estate. Every time I hang out with you, we just talk about real estate, right? We talk about real estate. We talk about martial arts. What gets you excited, right? And I think that's so important. But I think if there's any parents listening to this, you need to get your kids involved in sports at such a young age, because then you find what makes them exciting. And not that they need to be athletes as they grow up, but I mean, the life lessons that you learn from sports at a young age are just insane, right? So I don't, I have kids, so I want them involved in all sports, and they don't have to be martial artists, but they have, my goal is for them to be competitive in a sport. So, you know what I mean? We're trying to find a sport. We're going to try a couple of things. Yeah. He's only 5, so we still got a lot of room to figure it out. But as long as he's competitive in a sport, because competition, training for a competition, there's so many life lessons for that.
I think the life lesson that you're talking about, the big learning stuff, is when kids go into sports, they learn how to win and be successful. But a huge one is they learn how to lose.
Yes, absolutely.
Losing early on, I feel, is like even more of a push than if you were to win early on, right? Because you know what you did wrong. You can fix those mistakes. You can change those habits, and then push yourself to always be winning, right? So I think, I think for sure, like life lessons, you can learn a lot in school. You can, but it's all theory, right?
Yep.
Applying it is very, very hard, right? And sometimes, like, you go through all of high school, you're great in school, but then once you get into the real world, the life lessons start hitting you harder than the theory that you've been practicing. So
yeah, you really need to lose, and you need to lose often.
Because you learn,
right? It also makes you feel like, okay, I'm human. Like, you know what I mean? You can't always win. You can't always be perfect.
Yeah.
And you need to also just take those losses and learn from those as well too. I think when I started, like I said, I'm not the most athletic person, and I'm not that great at sports. I was great in karate, great in martial arts, but there was a lot of people that are better than me for sure. But I lost a lot when I first started, especially in competitions. I kept going to tournaments and just not placing, losing my first fight. I mean, if you know karate, if you watch the show Cobra Kai, it's exactly it. You go one-on-one, first point wins, and then there's always a loser, right? There's always someone that's going to lose or gets eliminated in the first round, all that kind of stuff. So I've been eliminated in first round many times as a junior. But there's times where I've won as well too. It just makes those wins a lot better. And then I just feel like you just need to lose eventually, right? There's times where you gain so much momentum, and that's the same thing with business as well too. I've had a really great 10 years, but there was definitely been some losses in those 10 years, and those losses remind you that you're human, but they also remind you that you're not the best, right? You need to also go back to the drawing board and figure out what you did wrong. You're not always right. Yeah. You know what I mean? There's going to be, and I mean,
it's okay to understand that too.
Yes.
It's okay to be wrong,
And I don't like taking losses, right?
Yeah.
And many people don't. Yeah. And I mean, it's easier said than done, right? Yeah. We can all talk about how, you need to lose and you need to learn from it. But everyone takes a loss differently. I know, if you know me very well, I'm very competitive.
For sure.
Especially, I mean, if you play video games with me, you'll know I'm competitive. You know what I mean? If I lose, I'm pissed, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's, but at the same time, it is good to be pissed off and mad because you care about it.
Yeah.
Right? Some people, they lose and they're just like, whatever, you know what I mean? That's okay. You know what I mean? I'm okay with going down this hole and going downhill, right? So as long as you make the moves to turn it around, you learn from it, and it takes a while to get over a loss, but at least you care, right?
Yeah. So speaking of losses, what was one of your biggest hurdles in running a gym or running a business on your own, right? It's like a lot of people think that they see a business that's thriving today, but they don't know what happened in the last 10, 15, 20 years
Yep.
to make it what it is today, right? Like restaurants are a perfect example of that, right? Like
Yeah.
there's some beautiful, amazing restaurants that are out there, but not all of them survive the first 2 years, right? So, yeah, tell me a little bit about that. Was there any like big hurdles that you had to jump over that you were kind of, what did you do to avoid those hurdles and stuff like that? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel like this decade every year has been a hurdle since 2020. But I mean, that's just part of the game. That's what you get into this life for, right? You're not gonna. I mean, you're a real estate agent, but you're also an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You're technically a business owner, right? So you didn't get into this world
Yeah.
to know that everything is going to be consistent. If you wanted that,
Yeah.
you could have gone another job.
Well,
There's other jobs you can.
neither of us have a paycheck unless we do something about it.
Unless
right?
if you work.
Yeah.
Exactly, right? So, I mean, there's so many hurdles in these past 10 years. There's been times where I wasn't able to pay my staff. There was times where I wasn't able to pay myself.
Yeah.
There's times where I had to put my personal stuff on the line to pay for things, especially in the beginning, right? And then pay myself eventually. I think like I said, this decade, every year has been a hurdle.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you need those hurdles, right? You need those because you just grow from it. Like there's a lot of growth in those hurdles and a lot of growth. So I feel like every single year since 2020 has been a hurdle.
Yeah.
There's always been something. There's been the pandemic. There's been shutdowns. I had to buy out a business partner. Last year I expanded one of my studios. And it went horrible. Like I just trusted the wrong people, right? I learned a lot from that,
Yeah.
right? But now we're winning. We're winning now. That was a year ago.
Yeah.
I was a complete different person a year ago. Now I'm a lot more level-headed because I just learned a lot from that, right? So, but the thing, that's just the game that we're playing right now as a entrepreneur, as a business owner, especially when your money is not your pay is not guaranteed.
In the worst economy too.
In the worst economy
That we've seen in years, right? So
yeah.
Yeah.
But but the thing is, you're right, it's the worst economy, but going into, like, you need to kind of ignore that kind of stuff, right? Like, and it goes back to the pandemic, right? The pandemic was the worst, and there was so many people in my industry that just kind of fell into that hole where this is terrible, we should be open, blah, 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 you know what I mean? And just kind of feeding into the negativity. And if you keep doing that, you're just kind of in denial of what's happening. You just got to work, right? Because you're right, it is a bad economy, but there's people that are still winning. You're still going to win. I'm definitely winning this year. I've had a better year. Every year I'm always doing better, and this year I'm doing much better than I did last year for both my businesses. But in the pandemic, there's some martial arts studios, for example, that didn't make it, that had to shut down. There's some reached out to me to buy them out, and they would say, oh, the pandemic, it was really hard on us, and we couldn't make. I'm like, well, then why are you asking me to buy you out? Because I clearly figured it out, right? So just because there are these hard times, yes, it is a bad economy. Yes, the crime rate is up. Yes,
unemployment is up. Everything's
up.
bad. Nothing.
You can't control that.
You listen to the news, nothing's good, right?
Yeah,
So-
exactly. You listen to the news, nothing is good, but you can't control that, right? What you can't control is your efforts.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I always told myself, and I told my team, especially in the pandemic, is that I couldn't control being open or closed. That wasn't my decision, but what was my decision was the effort and the energy I can put into my virtual program or into my outdoor classes or whatever. And that's why we always won, right?
Yeah. So that's, resilience, perseverance, all that stuff, it all factors in when you're running a business and people see it.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming you have clients from the past 10 years, probably a ton that were from the pandemic, right? Like, so you're talking about virtual classes. So what were you doing there during those virtual classes? Like, were you just, had a camera set up and...
No, we invested into something proper.
Yeah.
Like we started cheap with an iPad, and then like you look at the studio, we had something like this going on.
Nice.
Where we had some like soundproof walls, we had a proper camera, microphones, and everything like that. Because I mean, we were doing that for almost 2 years. Was it 2020? So up until 2022, I think we like cut out the virtual classes like in later 2022 when things started to get even more normal. But no, we invested in it. We just kind of, that was all we had, right? So we made it fun. We made it exciting. Again, we didn't go into the negativity.
Yeah.
We didn't give it. I mean, you can have your opinion about what's going on.
Yeah,
But
sure.
at the end of the day, a lot of those people were just in denial of what was going on.
Yeah.
And the more you put your energy into that, the less you can put into your business, and then you're just going to lose people, right? And I also just kind of, I got a sense of the crowd. My studio is in Stittsville, but I got a sense of the crowd of what everyone was feeling about the pandemic, and I knew exactly how to handle my business.
Yeah.
Right. There's some businesses that, you know, depending on their crowd and their what kind of people they have in their studio, they were all for being open, and those businesses, they did fine, right? I know some studio owners that kept their businesses open.
Yeah.
Whatever, man. Good for you. You know what I mean? You're able to do that, and you're able to still get things going, and that's fine, right?
Yeah.
But I knew my business, I knew my clientele, so I had to cater to that, right? And then the virtual thing was honestly the best thing, because that's what helped me open the second studio.
Yeah.
Is I opened my second studio in Barhaven. And that was probably the best move I ever did. And in fact, I regret not opening more. I really do regret not opening more, because just that time was just amazing. And nobody was opening studios like we were, right? And because everyone was just scared. And I even opened up that studio and had to shut it down because of the pandemic, literally a month or two later.
Wow.
So but it was probably the best risk I've ever taken. But leading up to that was the virtual program. I had members in Barhaven training in my virtual program for Stittsville. I had members in Toronto, I had members in Montreal, I had members around the city just training in my program. So Barhaven was just kind of, it had to happen.
So what did they do? They would log on virtually, and would you be like on a Zoom call or something like that?
Yep.
Okay, so it'd be pretty interactive then.
Yep. Yeah, we did the same amount of classes as we offer
Nice.
On our schedule. We just kept things rolling.
Yeah.
Because nobody was, right? The school, like a lot, I mean, our biggest clientele are kids, right? So the school wasn't, like the school system wasn't doing anything for virtual in the beginning. They weren't. So we were the only people doing something for the kids to do. So there's been a lot of families that still to this day are still members of the studio. They've kind of told me, like, listen, we had nothing during this time except you guys.
Nice.
And not only did we just teach virtual classes, we actually visited our members. I would go to their doors, drop off some stuff,
Nice.
drop off their belts, say hi to them in person, right? All that
Okay,
kind of
so
stuff.
yeah, like that's effort. That's not just
You got to work.
Yeah,
man.
no, exactly.
You got to, like you said,
Yeah.
back to what you said, your pay is never guaranteed as
Yeah.
a business owner. You got to work for it.
Yeah.
You have to hustle. You have to grind for it, right? And that's just how it is.
No, I didn't. I knew you were doing virtual. I didn't know you were going like above and beyond like that. So that's really awesome to hear. Like the like getting people interacting with the whole martial arts academy is like during that tough. I think that's like sports, martial arts, everything that was like physical was super hard to do in. During the pandemic, right? Like they were taking basketball nets down at parks. You know what I mean? Like because people were playing at the parks and you're not supposed to. Like it's just crazy stuff like that. But the fact that you were able to overcome it is
What a weird time.
Yeah, no.
What a weird time.
Yeah, looking back at it now is it's tough to see, but yeah.
Yeah. Weird time.
So we talking about some of your struggles. What about some of your successes? What would you say is your biggest success as a business owner and out of the martial arts studio?
I think obviously one of the biggest ones is buying out my business partner. I mean, he's doing great now and all good for him, but I've always wanted to be on my own.
Yeah.
Right? Since day one, I just wanted to. I don't like running decisions by someone. I like to make the decisions. That's just the person I am, right? So that was probably the biggest one ever.
Yeah.
And after that, I never felt so free. I felt great. I can just do whatever I want, do what I can, and even just owning the business right off the bat was just such a great feeling as well too. So, but I think that was the biggest one because that was something I just didn't see possible at the time. And it worked out. All parties won, and we've now everything you're seeing now. Like I rebranded the studio.
Yeah.
We're everywhere now. We're hoping to open more studios in the future. We have people applying for the studio from that have martial arts backgrounds from outside our studio.
Nice.
So our name is out there, right?
Nice.
So it's been great. So that's. And then opening the Barhaven studio as well too was a big win.
Yeah.
That was a fun experience, just building it ground up. When I opened that studio, I did literally everything and anything to open it up. I was going door to door. I was knocking on people's doors in the pandemic where people were wearing masks. I was wearing masks and gloves and saying, "Hey guys," and I had a prize wheel on my phone. And then I would press it for them, and they can win like a free week of classes, a free T-shirt, all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And I would book them in for their first class. So we did all kinds of stuff like that, opening that studio. So it was just fun. A lot of it was just such a fun time. Just a lot of fun experiences and fun learning.
Wow. So that's a lot of, for sure. Like, I mean, talk about going out in there and hustling and grinding for it. That's the definition of it right there, right?
Yeah.
Especially when, everything's shut down, but everybody's home. So good news, you're knocking on doors.
Yep.
You know, you got your preventative stuff on, but that's awesome to hear. Like it's
Well, a lot of those people, those are my first members in Barhaven.
Yeah.
And they're still here. So
well, why would you not be, right?
Exactly.
Like if somebody's going out to you, like it shows that they care as a business owner and they care about the community.
Exactly.
I think the community part about sports is I find is the most intriguing part. And I think in Canada, you know, I mean, I don't know if you like I grew up playing basketball, right? And basketball is huge in the States. It wasn't that big, and I mean, it's big in Canada now, but like you obviously in Canada, you see way more hockey rinks than you do basketball.
Yeah.
Right. So just one of those things like that. It's like, you know, I was always jealous of the fact that, you know, we'd play against some of these teams from the U.S. and stuff like that, and you'd see them, you know, they have all this gear, you know, they have all these guys have been playing with each other for 10 years and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, so there's like a huge sense of community there compared to here. And I think like sports now in Canada are starting to be more and more relevant.
Yep.
A lot different sports other than hockey. Hockey's always been huge and it always will be in Canada, but I think we're seeing a lot more sports evolve, especially on the martial arts side. I think martial arts as a whole is exploding because just like your business exploded, so did the UFC and all these other combat sports types.
Yeah.
Where it's, you know, it's finally on ESPN. It was before it was on Spike TV and
Yes.
all the, like, you know what I mean? So, so yes, like your sport, your academy isn't to train in the UFC or do MMA, but it's a branch of that. And I think that is shining a whole new light. Like, right, there's karate combat, there's, you know, grappling, like there's a whole bunch of more relevance on these sports now than there was way before the pandemic, because that's kind of the only stuff that was available during the pandemic as a sport. So it's interesting to see. And I think, you know, there's also not many academies of your size or gyms or studios that do the sports you do in Ottawa, right? Like there's very select few, and I think being able to grow it throughout Ottawa is going to be huge for sure. Just because there's, you know, some of the competition you had is no longer probably your competition.
No, yeah.
Right. It's just very different. It's I think, you know, I think it's nice to see, like, especially as a community builder, like, right? Like that's what I would consider you right now, is a community builder. You're out there knocking on doors, getting people involved when times are tough, and I think you're going to see a huge benefit of that over the next 10 years, because if somebody's knocking on my door and I'm meeting them, that's way different than me having to go out there and chase somebody to sign up my kid to classes.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
So
it was a crazy time doing that, right? Because, like, everyone's doing it on their phone now. Even, like, times have changed so much. Like, on our website, people are faster to fill out information, book their first class now compared to calling in. Like, we get more website than calls now. Like, people don't pick up the phone. People just don't talk anymore.
Yeah.
They don't. Like, you know what I mean? They rather just do it over their phone. They rather text message, all this kind of stuff. And then it kind of sucks. I mean, I don't love that kind of, but at the same time, for a business owner, it does make things faster. It does make things easier, right? I've changed a lot of systems on my business that things are a lot more digital, a lot more automated, you know, and that it's just easy for people to get information about our program, but also just to book their first class.
Yeah.
But I mean, in the pandemic, it was I had to do paid trials in the pandemic. So if you want to try the program, you had to pay $60 to try it out. And the reason why was because you had limited spots in the classroom. And, you know, a lot of restaurants had this issue too, where people would book a restaurant and then not show up, right? And restaurants, they had it even harder than we did, right? Where they had to fill up the room, right? So someone doesn't show up and then they have an empty table. It was like us, we would have empty spots sometimes. And then so I made a full phone script for my staff, trained them how to take credit card information over the phone, and charging $60 and emailing them receipt. You had to, right?
Yeah, no, it's a lot of restaurants are starting to do that too, right? Like you can't, like there's like some really nice restaurants starting to open up in Ottawa, and there's some that have been around, and even like if you go to Toronto, there's a lot of places you make a reservation, you got to put in that credit card, and there's a $50 hold on it. So no, it's especially if people are waiting to get in.
Yep.
Right, so I think that's a huge one. But yeah, like what do you foresee in the next 5 to 10 years with the CSMA? What's on the horizon?
Definitely more locations, 100%. Like I'm figuring it out better now, and I think the biggest thing I improved on this year was definitely onboarding new staff.
Yeah.
Like I said, I have people applying from outside the studio, which is, I mean, that's the only way I can grow my studios is by hiring more people and is by investing in my people.
Yeah.
So I take some of my people to seminars around the country, or we go to the US and train with some of the high level studio owners. But also I've fixed up my curriculum that if you have any martial arts experience, so you have to have a minimum of 3-4 years martial arts experience, which most people that come in that apply have like 10 years experience.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? But any sort of martial arts experience, you can adapt to our curriculum. Our curriculum is not just karate. And karate is great, and that's how I grew up.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, the times have changed. The sport has evolved a lot. I mean, we were just talking about UFC, right? UFC was a big part of that, of how our sport is involved.
Yeah.
And karate only is not essential, especially for self-defense, right? You need to be a well-rounded martial artist.
Yeah.
It's also the Bruce Lee mentality, right? You can't just have one style. You need to have a little
Yeah.
bit of everything, right? So our curriculum teaches a little bit of everything, but the basic stand-up is basic kickboxing, boxing moves, right? So if you have a guy that has a Muay Thai background, which a lot of people do,
Yeah.
right? They have a Muay Thai background, then they can work very easily in our
Yeah,
program.
integrate-
And I hired
yeah.
a guy that has 10 years of Muay Thai experience, full contact fights and everything. Great instructor. If I can just teach him how to be a better instructor, which he is a great instructor, but this is just an example for anyone. If I can teach him how to be a good instructor, the curriculum is easy to
Yeah.
teach. It's just about teaching him how to be a good instructor and managing the studio. So it's been great. I hired this one guy with 10 years experience. He's doing phenomenal. I hired another guy with just Taekwondo experience. So
Yeah.
no karate experience. Same thing. Doing super well with our curriculum
Yeah.
and adapting very well.
Yeah.
Because really what it comes down to is just, like you said, you're a community leader. I'm not the only community leader. All my instructors are.
Yeah.
And, if you see my social page, it's not just me. I have so many great instructors.
Yeah.
I have about 20 instructors on my roster, and about 5 of them are full-time. So many great instructors are investing their time in studio, working with our community, and they all have a great background, all have some strengths, and
Yeah.
that we all work together with, right? So as long as you can train good instructors, which I find I do a really good job at, and onboarding them, then I can build my business and build more locations. So that's my goal in the next 5-10 years, to have a lot of locations. And it's funny because I never said that before 10 years ago. I didn't expect having the 2 locations 10 years ago. I thought just having one powerhouse location is
Yeah.
great. And it is. Like, there's benefits to having one powerhouse location, right? There's less headaches. You can do other things as
Yeah.
well too. But I freaking love what I do at the same time.
Yeah.
When I'm at the studio, I love that I'm, providing careers for people. I love that I'm giving back to my community, especially in martial arts. A lot of people feel that to have a career in martial arts, you need to be a studio owner,
Yeah.
right? Or you need to be like a UFC fighter,
Yeah.
which is not the case, right? And there's some of these other studios, they pay their staff just like subcontractor. They come,
Yeah.
they teach a class, and that's it,
Yeah.
right? Where I'm trying to build careers, trying to build salaries and careers for people that they can do this as for life, and provide for their family, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's an interesting take on it because like that's one of those things where this sport doesn't have much career options, and you're making options out of it, right? So
Exactly.
and that only happens with growth and more expansion and stuff like that. So yeah, no, I'm excited to see your future, man. Like,
Thank you,
it's
bro.
It's gonna be fun, and yeah, we've trained together a lot, and the gyms are definitely something that like one of a kind, right? Like, I find that a lot of gyms for martial arts, I think size is the biggest issue, and I think that's where a lot of it's hard too, right? I mean, if you're a gym centrally located, where are you gonna get a good sized gym?
Yes, it's very hard. I mean, that's my issue with Barhaven, right? So
Yeah.
my sister location's amazing. You've been there.
Yeah.
It's huge. I have a gym. I have 2 classrooms. I have a proper lobby, TVs everywhere, washroom. I have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 washrooms.
Yeah.
Right. So it's quite big. It's hard to find a spot like that.
Yeah.
Anywhere in the town, right? But that area where
So
I'm in,
what's both locations? So we got Stittsville on, where is it again?
59 Iber Road.
Yeah.
And then my other one, Barhaven's on 4100 Strandard.
Strandherd. That's where's that? Is that the old Good Life area or?
So just on the other side. So towards the Costco.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, Strandard's like one of their main roads.
Yeah.
Barhaven's busy.
It's busy. It's jam packed for sure.
Oh my god, it's so busy.
Like I grew up in Barhaven, and that's yeah, like it's way bigger than when I was there. Like I moved out of Barhaven in 2015, and like even then, like Half Moon Bay was just starting.
Yeah.
And now it's like you drive down Strandhurst, or you're at the end of Barhaven, and then you're going into Half Moon Bay, and that's like a whole new area.
Yeah, so my studio's on the other side of that. So
Yeah.
if you're going towards the west end,
Yeah.
towards the Amazon
Yeah.
warehouse, that's exactly towards there. But yeah, no, that's a great.
Yeah, no, I'm happy for you, man. Like it's been like I've been there to see your journey kind of start and go midway through, and then pandemic, and now you're here and 2 locations in, and
Well, you've been there since day one, man.
Yeah,
You sold me my first car.
yeah, there you go. So
And now look where we are.
Yeah, no,
right.
exactly.
So isn't that wild?
well, who would have thought? Who would have thought 10 years ago, right?
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Who would have thought 10 years ago, right? So like, and clearly, like, sales has been something that you've been good at. You love, and look where it's taken you. Right?
Yeah.
So that's great.
No,
A lot of growth from the both of us.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head earlier. Like you got to lose a lot to learn more and to be better. And I always try and be 1% better every day. If I can just change one thing about myself and be better, that's what I try and do. None of us are perfect, and I'm far from perfect myself. But
Yep.
just the fact that we're able to learn and keep going and keep going and keep going and get hit a few times, a bunch of times, and get dropped a bunch of times. It's nice to see that we're still moving forward, and yeah, that's my biggest takeaway, especially learning from you, man. Like it's been interesting, especially like the fact that you went in, you kind of leaned into the pandemic as opposed to being negative, as opposed to being hoping that things get better. There's no hope in business.
No, there's not.
Like this is like there's no hope in. I'm hoping like if I said, oh, I hope to sell 2 houses this month, or I'm just hoping. I'm hoping it happens, right? I have to actually go out there and do it and get it done.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, like, it's like goes down to like relying on the government or people to help you out. No one's gonna help.
Yeah, hope isn't a business plan.
Yeah, it's not. It should never be your business plan.
Yeah, 7 years ago, somebody said they asked me, how many cars are we gonna sell this month? Like for people that don't know, I used to be in the car industry, and somebody said to me, one of my managers said, what's your plan this month? And I said, well, I hope to sell this many cars. He said, hope is not a business plan. And I said, okay, let's fine tune that.
Yeah, he's right. He's right.
It's not right. Like I'm hoping this. I'm hoping that. Like I'm hoping I'm alive tomorrow. Right. Like it's.
Yeah. Like
it's,
nothing's
yeah.
ever guaranteed. The game can always change, and the game did change a lot this year.
And it's gonna keep chachanging. It's gonna keep changing.
Keeps changing.
Right? And like
you notice that with the real estate,
dude. It changes every day.
This,
Yeah.
that economy, blah blah.
Speaking
blah.
of interest rates, 0.5% rate reduction today. So.
Woo!
But no, like it's like change, like the fact that you have guys and girls from other gyms coming in with different knowledge, that shows that you're already going to be ahead of the change.
Yeah.
Right. So you have a Taekwondo person, a Muay Thai person. Who knows? Maybe someday you have a grappling person or whatever. Right.
Yeah.
Maybe you start offering different classes. Maybe maybe things shift completely. Like I don't know. Right. We don't know, but it seems like you're kind of at the forefront of change, which is how you've been kind of running your business, right?
Absolutely.
It's you're rolling with the change and not just sitting there and waiting.
Yeah, and that just it really comes down to like the goal of our studio. I mean, we want to make great martial artists. We want to make sure our students can defend themselves. That's our number one priority. Yeah. You got to make sure they can defend themselves. But we also want to. I mean, this is my philosophy. Everyone has a different philosophy of martial arts, but to teach a child to defend themselves, you need to build them inside first.
Yeah.
You need to build their confidence first, right? Yeah. You need to build their personality first,
yeah.
right? Because I've had kids with me that are like the highest level martial artists, but then when someone picks a fight with them, they freeze,
yeah.
right? They don't know what it's. So a lot of it's interior,
yeah.
inside. So build the inside first, and then the outside will come, right? So, so that's why I don't. Like, I hire great instructors, but I don't hire based on skill. I hire based on personality. Because like I said, this person is going to be a role model to my kids, a role model to the students at the academy, right? There's some great martial artists out there, world champion, title holders, full contact.
Yeah.
A lot of them have terrible personalities, right?
Because they're selfish in a way, right? They had to get to that level somehow.
Exactly.
Right? So,
and hey, I'm not taking away anything from them. That's amazing. That was their goal. But some of them, they bring that kind of negativity into the studio, and it's just like, okay, listen, man. Not everyone's going to be a competitor.
Yeah.
Not everyone's going to be like a winner. Some people are just here to just better themselves, right?
Yeah.
It's like you hire people. Sorry, you sign up people for a gym, like a Good Life.
Yeah.
Not everyone's gonna be a freaking have a six pack.
Yeah.
Some people are just here just to work on themselves, just
Yeah.
to move, right? So so it's the same kind of philosophy in my studio, and yeah.
No, I like that, man. Like it's definitely like I always recommend like for kids to get into sports as soon as possible. Like you talked about the confidence building thing.
Yeah.
Like if your kid is playing games all day, watching TV on their iPad, they're getting no social they're getting no social exposure from like friends, people that aren't their friends.
Yeah.
Right. So they don't know how to react. Like for me, the way I look at it is, okay, so you don't know how to interact with somebody that's giving you a hard time. You don't know how to interact with somebody that you really are really good friends with. You don't know how to interact with somebody that, you aspire to be, or somebody that's influencing you in a way, right? Good or bad.
Yeah.
So like you don't know how to react to these things because you're glued to, whatever you're focused on, right?
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, like, man, when we were kids, I think my favorite part of the day was being at recess, playing sports, or in the middle of summer being out from 12 p.m.
Yep.
to like 8, 9 p.m. at night, and you smell like crap.
Yeah.
You've been sweating all day, but you've been running around, just playing in the park, whatever, right?
Yep.
And
Being social.
yeah, like those are some of my fondest memories, man. Like
Yeah.
it's like I can remember like what I did this one winter when we made a big snowman and we did this and we did that, right? Like we went tobogganing down a hill, or we played basketball for hours on this day, or we chased whatever. Like I don't know. Like I'm just like, but like these are memories that you remember. You're not gonna remember what you watched on TV. Mm-hmm. Like yeah, you're gonna remember it, but it's like it's not gonna be an ingrained memory that you're gonna get a feeling of, right?
Yeah.
Like I know the exact feeling I felt back in those times. Like it was pure joy because I was doing that.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And you really experience it. You're in the moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
And then,
a lot of times this tablet and the phones, I mean, we're guilty of it as adults as
For
well.
sure,
too.
yeah, yeah.
But it just turns you off. It turns you off, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of parents, they give them their iPads, tablets to turn them off.
Yeah.
And it just kind of destroys their imagination and just,
Yeah.
and I mean, like, there's times where you need it.
Yeah.
Like, I have kids too, but my son doesn't own an iPad, but we bring the iPad when we go on vacation.
Mm-hmm.
Different scenario, you know what I mean? We're on
Yeah.
freaking vacation. We're paying to have a
Yeah.
good time. Once in a while, okay, here, you can have the
Yeah.
iPad wherever at the table.
go do whatever. Yeah.
Whatever,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But,
But on that vacation, he's also going to the beach,
Yes.
right. Like it's not like, yeah, like I get it. I think everything's good in moderation, and yeah, I mean, starting as early as possible for your kids and even for yourself, like whatever, right? Even if
Exactly.
you're not in martial arts, or if you don't play sports, just start doing something, just move, right? Like,
Yeah.
like you said, the gym thing, like some people don't work out for 10, 15 years, or don't do anything, right? Anything active, but like we said, you learn and you grow.
yeah.
No better time to start than now, right? So
Exactly.
just start. But yeah, like that's kind of it, man. I appreciate you coming on. So tell everyone at home what they can expect, where they can reach you, and how do they join the CSMA family?
Awesome. So you can go on our website, csma.ca. You can follow us on Instagram, csma.ottawa. We're putting out some great content. Yeah, you can go on our website, fill out some information, book your first class, whether for yourself or for your kids, or if you want to just come pop in and see what's up, come stop by anytime.
Awesome. Thank you, Imran. Thank you, everybody, and we'll have a good day.
Take care, guys.
Bye.